Armsmen everywhere. The burglar shakes his head as he observes them in palaver with the local watchmen before returning back to their posts. No matter. It will just be that much sweeter when he takes his loot. For this eve, the burglar stands in front of a palatial estate, second only to the battered one right by the coastline. The Mirror Trade House, now the crown jewel of the Gold Coast, bustles with activity. There's a slim moment between when the festivities subside and when the storm approaches. A moment is all the burglar needs. Night falls, almost morn, just in time as the wind picks up and thunder rolls in the distance. A vagrant, one much less polite and sanitary than old Lem, provides an opening, as two armsmen and one watchman tend to this smelly and noisy intruder. How fortuitous! And they say the Maker does not favor thieves and crooks. The burglar slipped into the garden and makes haste towards the Grand General. The gigantic gnarled primordial oak was there before Grimsby, possibly there before all men, and will still be there after the Maker has bound up this miserable ball of earth and rendered judgment. And its gnarled branches hung near the chimney. As the burglar dusts himself in front of the fireplace, he listened to the melodic breathing of a young babe in his father's arms. Both of the lads, still guarding exquisite finery, have fallen asleep on an ornate cushion with a half-empty wineglass on the table next to them. On the gentleman's chest, a brooch of brilliant flaming sapphire. Underneath it, a golden pin with fists clasped together. Ah, Aronian! The burglar ponders the possibility of visiting the fair nation for but a moment as the shadow slides into the room. The armsman covered his torch as the gentleman and his boy stirred lightly. With a quick look, he pulled the door gently closed as the burglar emerged from behind the cushion. Footsteps having departed, he eyed the brooch and seal, then dismissed the thought for fear of alarming the lad into rousing his father from slumber. At least, that's what the burglar told himself. Up a flight of stairs is his destination, the display room. Two armsmen by the door stared straight down the hallway as they whispered about pugilism, ladies, and the dreadful storm that's rapidly approaching. Inside, surely at least one or two others. A boisterous snore interrupted their hushed conversation and adjusted their sight towards the chambers. A perfect opportunity for the burglar to slip into the darkened storeroom and enact his plan. The quiet conversation resumed. As the armsmen chatted about how they have never seen a man that size before and pondered how the corpulent trader's vest fit his mountainous frame without breaking, the burglar readied his noisemaker. He stayed still as the quiet murmurings outside came to an abrupt end. Nothing to report, the armsman replied tersely. An obsidian giant entered the room, his hood emblazoned with a steel dragon. He took measures to look around the room, behind the furniture, then out the window. He even lifted the cloth to check on the old display cases and broken chairs underneath. But he neglected to look up. As the giant armsman departed, the burglar lowered himself back to the floor and pondered what they were feeding those people in the deep vale. The noisemaker said he slowly clambered out the window and shimmied towards the room. The burglar edged himself below the lock-stained glass window. A good sturdy lock, yet easily and noisily broken with a hammer and chisel. All that was needed was commotion. The calamitous racket that erupted from the storage room could be heard even from the outside. Shouting, cursing, embroiled the hallways as stunned dignitaries, merchants, tradesmen, and their families were awoken to the door in this din. The patrolling armsman immediately rushed to the door, hoping that his two comrades would illuminate him and his companion to the situation outside. His companion readied his truncheon and saber next to the central display case, but to no avail. The burglar suffocated him into unconsciousness as he surreptitiously moved in striking distance of the patroller. As soon as the patroller finished his inquiry with the two outside, he was dismissed from duty with a heavy blow from the burglar's sap. Key to the showcase, and behold, the ancient gem-encrusted scepter and crown now belongs to the burglar. Quickly closing the window, the burglar clambered down. An earth-shattering thunderclap nearly knocked him from the stone walls as even more screaming can be heard inside. Then the heavens opened. Between the turmoil from the trade house and the turbulent storm, the combined watchmen and armsmen outside never had a chance. The burglar slipped back onto the streets and swiftly ran to the nearest shelter available. This empty, opulent manor used to be a crown jewel of the Gold Road. Most of the furniture still remained despite the seasons. Volunteers and workers still maintained the premises in daytime. Officially, it's for whoever wishes to purchase and use the manor. In actuality, the people of Grimsby hoped that their former inhabitants would make a return. For now, the estate belongs to the burglar. It is not a pleasant sensation to be woken up so suddenly, more so one startled awake by a noise. Worst of all is when it's a crying little girl. The burglar quickly took his leave, and just in time. The rains have departed and the sun has made its first crack. The watchmen outside are conversing with the priests, nuns, and laymen here for maintenance. By the time the watchman looked around, the burglar was on his way back to the inn. Sleeping his weariness and discomfort away, the burglar woke up to some intense murmuring downstairs. Guarded in inconspicuous workman clothes, he proceeded with curiosity. It was the Royal Society of Orbis triumphantly returning from an archaeological expedition from the frigid Grimsby Alatai mountain ranges. Many artifacts of great historical and scientific value have been discovered and will be put on show for the general public at the Grimsby Theatre for 1 month before the Orbis return home. Then, minus some artifacts which should be given to Grimsby and Alatai, of course, further study can be conducted at the Royal Symposium. The burglar immediately asked about admission prizes. At day, the constant flow of humanity and the presence of Grimsby's guardsmen make theft a challenging endeavor. At night, the premises are guarded by 4 armsmen, brothers all. All 4 are vigilant and reliable, some of the most highly regarded armsmen around. Yet there are only 4 of them, and they are only human. To properly cover the sprawling theater house and attached actors' living quarters, the 4 needed to be hasty. The same haste makes them easy to avoid. It wasn't long at all before a plan was formulated, and the burglar simply waited for calmer weather. Unless it's by the ivory shores of the Crescent Islands under the warm sun with beautiful natives by his side, he never wanted to be that drenched ever again. On a clear moonless night, the burglar mantled himself from a rundown shack onto the rooftops. A short while later, he is on top of the actors' quarters. The sleeping Orbians took little notice of the intruder who easily slipped into and out of their chambers. A brief break between 2 of the brothers' patrols is all that was required for the burglar to make his way toward the theater hall. From backstage, any gap in the patrols can be observed and exploited. So there he did. Seconds passed, then minutes, but there was no patrol. Puzzled, the burglar surreptitiously emerged onto the answer. A lone hooded figure watching intently over the burglar's prize. Then suddenly, the figure jerked back and looked straight at the burglar. The burglar reeled at realization that he could still be spotted in from behind a row of seats and in shadow. This will not do. The figure approaches. The sap was ready as the hooded figure disappeared. Went right past him. The burglar was never in danger of being caught. With a slight chuckle and a sigh, he drew his lockpicks. A moment later, the amulet was now his. Out the window and back on the rooftops towards the old shack. As he mantled himself onto the streets, the burglar was now face to face with the hangman's noose. The septuagenarian thief-taker, though still very much vigilant and duty-bound, was no match for his recently and abruptly retired predecessor, thus making him no match for the burglar. It is not possible for this ailing yet determined lawkeeper to halt the thief himself. Instead, he summoned his whistle. Staggered and bleeding, the flying sap did his work. For a frantic second, the taker saw his fallen whistle. The burglar sped away. Enraged, the old taker hobbled towards the burglar, uttering every curse under the sun and above the waves, threatening the ruffian's immortal soul with perdition. The ruckus further attracted watchmen and vigilantes to the taker's aid. The chase is afoot. taker never needed the whistle. His litany of righteous fury can be heard from afar, bringing more people to his cause and against the burglars. Off-duty armsmen chased him. Watchmen took swings at him. Townspeople would throw rocks at him. Young ladies shouted his location. An old milkmaid tried to trip him. If he were not to make his escape soon, death would surely follow. The burglar frantically weaved through the miscellaneous alleyways, streets, roads, nooks, and crannies. Although an admirable job was done with evading a majority of the Grimsby and vigilantes through the winding city, the watchman, the taker, and a few others kept a steady pace with the knowledge of Grimsby's tracks. Spree and trickery having proved insufficient, the burglar swallowed hard as he contemplated his final destination. He was already on the Gold Coast Road, and the abandoned manor was in sight. It was what to do. Deftly weaving between a mob of watchmen out front, he broke his way inside and appeared and disappeared through several stairways, secret rooms, hidden passages, and large pieces of furniture. Slowly, his pursuers melted away in the confusion, save for the old taker and his entourage who were never too far. Alas, they lost sight of him but for mere seconds, and the chase was terminated. Hours of searching ensued to no result. The old taker lamented his infirmity as the younger watchman carried the now out-of-breath and depleted man outside. It took all the burglar's strength not to fall down the chimney with a vicious, tumultuous impact. Exhausted, he crawled out of the fireplace onto the massive Emalian tapestry in front, briefly admired the amulet he pilfered, put it beside him, and drifted off. Why can't it be a bird or an errant wind? Maker's grace. At this rate he would gratefully accept the filthy rat as a source of his disturbance. But no, a pale little girl shook him awoke, her teary, lifeless eyes staring straight into his soul. He screamed loudly at her, not caring now the watchman can hear. But the young lass was no longer inquiring about her doll. She just pointed to his prize and mournfully pleaded, cajoled, begged, and demanded that he must make his getaway. So he did, from the manor now inhabited by a wailing little girl, with his prize firmly in hand. As the burglar recovered from his nightmare, the captain was already downstairs inquiring the hostel owner about a series of recent thefts in the city. No matter, the burglar had what he needed and would soon depart for his next prize. After fencing his goods, of course. The stalwart underworld was a particularly welcome place for such rare artifacts. When not jockeying for power, the stalwart noble houses take great pride in banding exquisite valuables, acquired lawfully or otherwise. As he made ready for his departure, he took one last opportunity to admire his rewards. Bag of gold, exquisite paintings, the beautiful crown scepter of a long-lost kingdom, and finally, the amulet. The copper amulet was molded as a circle of gnarled and twisted branches with a murky jade stone in the middle. The branches showed signs of greening. Only signs, however. Curiously, despite being possibly as old as, or even older than, the crown and scepter, the air did little damage to the copper. As for the centerpiece, notwithstanding the dull color, the jade was stunning, appealing, consuming. The burglar rubbed his eyes as the color of the jade grew lighter. He will have to rest elsewhere. Grimsby is no longer accommodating. As he put his final provisions away, he felt tired, uneasy. The jade is now translucent. The copper branches are black and the green spots gone. Then the stone glowed. He drew another sap to face his adversary, but he dropped to the floor, drained. The hooded intruder reclaimed his possession. The burglar tried to sit, to move, to yell, to see. As his eyes closed for the final time, his ears strained to hear the last sound he will ever hear, the hooded figure spoke. "Take care, Faze. I'm most grateful for your contribution."